normalization of witchcraft, cannot be understated in today's modern society. There's never been more danger from these entities. In olden times, there were stories told, like Hansel and Gretel, warning children about old women in the woods that ate children. If you actually think about that story of Hansel and Gretel, these two children, this brother and this sister, were wandering through the woods, playing, leaving breadcrumbs, and they encountered a house. And in this house was a giant aura of evil. But the children decided to go in anyway. And they encountered a woman who seemed like she was nice. She seemed elderly and she seemed friendly. And she locked these children in a cage, told them she was going to eat them. And if it wasn't for the fact that these children managed to kick this woman into her own oven and kill her, they would have died. But on top of that, the most important part of the story, I think, other than the children surviving and defeating the witch, was the fact that they were in the forest with breadcrumbs being left. And they were able to follow that trail all the way back out of the forest. And I think that right there is the true breadcrumb for the listeners of the story. And you're probably saying, how is that? But if you think about it, witches and people who practice divination and all this evil spellcraft and witchery, animals do not go near these people because they sacrifice animals. You'll see a lot of animal skulls, dog skulls, cat skulls, hyena skulls, whatever kind of animal they're killing and cutting up and creating these magical potions with. These animals are terrified of these entities. And I think that's a telltale sign of somebody who's practicing witchcraft. Now, of course, I have no proof, and this is just purely my opinion. But I think that may be a hint in the story as to why these children were able to follow a breadcrumb trail out of a forest, and there were no animals to run up and eat the breadcrumbs. Because animals were either dead or they were hiding in terror, trying to get out of the damn forest themselves. And I think that's the reality of the situation. You see, witches have taken over the society. Witches and witchcraft and spellcraft, users of divination, and all manner of evil entities rule. And how you know to look out for them is the fact that wherever you feel, I would say, semi-welcome, or you feel like you're being lured into a false sense of security, that's the time when you should be most on guard. Because in reality, evil, if it's going to come at you, it's not going to come at you usually with guns drawn, swords out, screaming and hollering, letting you know that it's evil and it wants you're dead and wants to feast on your corpse. More often than not, they're going to pretend to be your friend and lure you somewhere to do something horrible to you. Women and witches, they want to lure us into their beds. They want to drain us of our seeds, of our very life essence. And the most important thing that we need to watch out for is a false sense of security. Because that, in my opinion, is the fang of a witch. It's how she sinks her teeth into you. She gets you to relax. She gets you to drop your guard, and then they poison you. And then they take something from you, something that you want. Maybe it's a shirt, maybe it's a shoelace, maybe it's a button from your jacket. But they take something that belongs to you. And when this thing is missing, could be a lock of hair, they do something to it. Now, I don't know whether or not what they're doing actually affects you. But I know that in my own family, I've seen my own mom, rather than leave hair that's been cut on the floor, she takes it and burns it so nobody else touches it. Now, what women know in regards to witches will not necessarily be what we know as men. But this is something that we should all watch out for and pay attention to. Because witches are real. They present themselves in the media. They present themselves in daily life. And they are not shunned and they are not ridiculed. They're celebrated because this is their society. A society of whoredom. A society of evil. And they rule. A lot of people think that, they buy into the propaganda that old, evil white men have taken over society and that they control the day-to-day operations and that they are behind this mass loss of children. I believe it's like over 1 million children go missing every year in America and climbing. Children specifically at the border, you got all these children coming in and they're mysteriously going missing. If it was any other group specifically other than children, you could write it off as anything else. But because it's children, I believe, in my opinion, that it's witchcraft and that witches are taking these children and they're feasting on their corpses or they're feasting on them alive. It's no secret that evil entities love innocence. And I believe we as men, even if you don't know a child, if you see a child in danger, I believe it's your natural response to help that child. I believe. Because the entities that are out there preying on children, misleading children, that are putting all this sexual content in children's material to mislead them, it's not by accident. It's very much intentional. And moreover, it's been done before with great success. I believe we're reaching a height with the evil from these entities. It's at a tipping point where we might even get to a point where we even start to see children just go missing, like right off the block, right in your neighborhood. I can't tell you how many times I've just been out and somebody's approached me with a flyer and said, "Hey, have you seen my cousin? Have you seen my niece? Have you seen my little brother?" And this is where we are in society. In this society. A society of witches, of fanged evil ones, who take the weakest among us and corrupt them to no end and do who knows what else to them. I say, as a man, you have to be vigilant, not just for yourself, but for an innocent one as well. Because if you look at a kitten or even a puppy and you see it and you think, oh, this animal or this entity is not totally disgusting, a child, you gotta feel the same way about them as well. And I mean like an actual child. In my opinion, a child is a boy that's not able to produce seed. A child is also a girl who is unable to get pregnant. These are children. Once they're able to do this, as far as I'm concerned, they're adults. But the reality is, in this current society, something is known about children. Something that us average, everyday men may not know. What that is, we may never know, and more importantly, we may never even want to know it. It may be that disturbing. But the reality of the situation is this. Children are going missing. I believe witches and warlocks and all manner of evil entities have something to do with it. I think we should all be vigilant and always have this in our minds. Something to think about. Peace.